This is Derek Favors, number 15 from the Utah Jazz. You're listening to Drive Time Sports with Jordan Buscarini.
3-point game. Harris, pick and roll it. Favors takes a strong and one. Oh my! Watch Derek Favors take a leap right here.
We're going to continue on the basketball front. Let's move away from local. Let's talk national. Coming up here tonight on KOAL, the Utah Jazz will make their return. Utah right now at 2-1. David Locke and Ron Boone will bring you the play-by-play call. Jazz, Suns, 7 o'clock tip-off there, and it sets the stage for what will be a very busy weekend for the Utah Jazz as well as they start to get some games under their belts. Tomorrow, they'll take on the Clippers in a very intriguing matchup at 7 o'clock. You'll also be able to listen to that right here on KOAL as well. Joining us right now over the phone to talk all things NBA, we have Tom Perkins of HoopCityNews.com. Tom is an independent NBA scout and the founder of HoopCityNews.com. Tom, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Great to be here. I love doing this show. It's so much fun.
Well, it's been a little while since we've gotten you on, and now the time is here. I mean, we're 4 or 5 games deep for some teams as far as the NBA season is concerned. And, Tom, I know that you dissect, you break down, you talk to teams around the league, and so let me give you my assessment right out of the gate. The play through the first 4 games of the season has stunk. It hasn't been good basketball.
That's correct. I really agree with you about that. Obviously, the very shortened off season played a part into that, and then of course them getting together for practice, so they're not really a fine-tuned type of team right now. Everybody's still trying to get their feet and so on and so forth, and trying to learn, especially if they have a new team, a relatively new team like Lakers. They're trying to go ahead and find themselves, and that's it's a difficult proposition under these circumstances.
Yeah, Tom, when we look at some of the new faces and new places, I mean, to me, that's one of the biggest hampers of this whole season, the way it was condensed in the offseason. You had guys signing contracts with teams literally 3 to 4 weeks before they joined the squad and got to play an actual NBA game. It's asinine when you think about it. And I understand that Adam Silver's done everything that he possibly could to get things moving back as normal as possible. I mean, you had to do it, but that's the biggest transition. I mean, you look at some of these teams, there are so many new faces, and it's just not feasible to garner that type of chemistry and trust in that short period of time, and I'm sure you're seeing that.
Absolutely. I mean, you take the Lakers, for example. You know, they've almost overhauled their entire team, and one of the biggest things that's lacking with the Lakers is the rim protection. I mean, Gasol is a nice serviceable center who can do some damage in regards to offense and do some rebounding, and he passes pretty well, but he's not really a defensive stalwart. In other words, missing Howard and missing JaVale McGee is something that they really, really miss because they have no rim protection. So now a lot of the teams are exposing the Lakers because they absolutely cannot defend the pick and roll. I mean, Portland, their guards just embarrassed the Lakers the other night with the pick and roll. There's no way Harold can go ahead and figure out, should he go on top, should he go beneath the screen, and it's a mess when it comes to their pick and roll. So it seems to me like the remedy for the Lakers is that, and I know he doesn't like this, but Anthony Davis is going to have to play more center in regards to defense, because I don't think that Gasol is not quick enough to play that kind of defense.
Yeah, when I watch the Lakers, I'll tell you the biggest problem that I've assessed in the games that I have watched, and I've watched them play all 5 of their games so far, the amount of energy that they are putting forth. I mean, in the Portland game, we can talk about their inability to go to the pick and roll. We know that Montrezl Harrell, he can move around the perimeter. We understand this. This guy's lighter on his foot, not a whole lot of rim protection, but still, at the end of the day, the effort has not been there for the Lakers. I don't think anyone beats this team, Tom. I really don't. I mean, barring a massive injury, and I said this last year when they acquired Anthony Davis, nobody's going to beat this Laker team with LeBron and AD. You're just not going to beat this team in a 7-game series. They're better this year. They can beat you in more ways. Barring a major injury, this is a team that's playing with their food right now. That's what I've gotten out of the Lakers so far.
Well, you could be right, but I think there are definitely some teams that are capable of beating them. I mean, mainly the Brooklyn Nets. Even though without Dinwiddie, I mean, that team has played very well this first part of the season. So you have to consider them. The Clippers are still pretty doggone good when they have all hands on deck, and when Paul George has Kawhi Leonard. It's apparent to me that without Kawhi Leonard, Paul George goes into the tank. It's just too much for him to carry a team by himself, and he should be able to do that for a game or two. So if they have all hands on deck, and Kawhi Leonard's playing, and everybody's playing, they can definitely give the Lakers a run for their money. And in the meantime, people like Utah could do something with them. Denver could certainly do something with them. I don't think they necessarily could say they could beat them. It's possible, but it's not necessarily a slam dunk that Lakers are going to go ahead and move through all the way to their 18th ring.
Yeah, you and I will have conversations, I know, throughout the entire year. I will make that bold prediction right now. Nobody beats this team. Barring a massive injury to LeBron or AD, I just don't see it, Tom. I look at the way, and again, they have arguably their best point guard since, my gosh, we'd have to go a long ways back. A prime Derek Fisher and Dennis Schroeder. That's how long it's been since the Lakers have had a competent point guard. I'm not talking about Gasol and Kobe Fisher. I'm talking about Shaq and Kobe Fisher. That's almost 20 years. They finally have a point guard, and they better lock up Dennis Schroeder relatively soon, because I think when you watch this team play, even in the loss to Portland, he was really the one bright spot.
Yeah, well, definitely a bright spot. But another bright spot that came up last night, I think he's battling some injuries, is Wes Matthews. Him hitting 6 for 6 from the three, that's unheard of. And that's something they don't even expect from him. They expect that tough defense, which, of course, he can give them, the perimeter defense. And he's also more capable of defending the pick and roll. But the big thing with him is that he can offer some offense along with that defense. And now they have two defensive stalwarts that can defend the perimeter, Schroeder and Wes Matthews. So if Wes Matthews continues to develop, he's going to be something to handle. Boy, so the Lakers certainly on paper, no one can beat them. But again, it's a long season.
Oh, it is.
Got about 68 games more to go.
That's correct. That's correct. Again, Tom Perkins, our guest right now of HoopCityNews.com. Tom, let's talk Eastern Conference and what are the best surprises so far. And again, you just mentioned it. There's still 68 games to go, so you don't ever want to overreact. You don't ever want to become a prisoner of the moment. But looking at the standings and seeing the Orlando Magic at 4-0, well, it's got to put a smile on just about any NBA fan's face. I mean, we're talking about Terrence Ross, who is leading the team in scoring off of the bench. He's averaging 21, has not started a single game so far this year for the Magic. Vucevic, who we know is very, very good. I mean, he has been for a long time. He's averaging 20 points a game. Markelle Fultz, it's great to see him get some success. He gets wrapped up in a contract. He's averaging about 18 a game, and that's what everyone expected when he came out of Washington. Evan Fournier's been great. Aaron Gordon's been good. I mean, when you look at this Orlando Magic team, yes, 4-0 looks great, but when you dig into what they've actually accomplished, it looks pretty good.
It does look pretty good. Well, Nikola Vucevic, he's really come up big this year so far. And, of course, Markelle Fultz getting his, fifth chance of trying to make it is really coming around. Aaron Gordon has always been very good, and he's always been very steady. So they've got pieces that fit very nicely. In other words, they complement each other really nicely in regards to position by position, and that chemistry is really working for them. So that's a surprise in a way, but in a way it's not. And I bet you when you go to the Orlando Magic locker room, you can feel the cohesiveness, because that's important, as you know. The cohesiveness of any team is way important.
Again, Tom Perkins, our guest right now. Tom, if we look at the Eastern Conference in general, it's a conference that we we pay attention to, but not as much here in the state of Utah, obviously, with everything that's happening with the Utah Jazz. You had mentioned the Brooklyn Nets, and I know it's an exciting team. It's something that's going to take some time to really gel, just because we don't know how often we're going to see Kyrie and KD out on the court early on. The Nets so far this year, 3-2. What stood out to you with this team?
Well, what stood out to me is not development, but the recovery of KD. Kevin Durant has done an amazing job in recovering, and I look at a couple of things about that. In the first game, he made 2 drives on the baseline and finished with a dunk. Now, usually when people come back from an Achilles injury like that, they're very hesitant to make that move. He wasn't. He was fluid all the way through and finished strong. And, when you make a dunk like that, you're pretty high up, and you got to come down pretty hard. Well, he had no problem with that. And he made several other fluid movements that showed me he is probably fully repaired in the Achilles. So I don't know. It seems to me like whatever doctor, did surgery on him did a great job, because he is, really playing well. So that's the thing that stands out to me, how far he's come. And, of course, Kyrie Irving is very effective along with him, and Kyrie Irving knows when to give that ball to him, because he does not demand the ball as much as Kyrie Irving does. So that works out fine. So, with the exception of Dinwiddie going down, they've got a pretty solid team. And, it's pretty interesting that they've got D'Antoni as an assistant coach on that bench.
Yeah, that's a great point. Tom, if we jump back over to the Western Conference, we have to talk about the Utah Jazz, 2-1 so far this season. The Jazz will have an opportunity to really make some headway in the Western Conference. Again, most teams have played 4 or 5 games. The Jazz right now just 3. But looking at the small sample size that we have seen from this squad, they look good. They look better than they looked last year. I still worry a little bit about the potency coming off of the bench. That's been my big concern. Having Bogdanovich back definitely helps. It gives you a little bit more depth. But in my mind, that's still my biggest worry with the Utah Jazz. Do you have a deep enough rotation offensively, but by the time we get to the playoffs and the rotation tightens to 9, 8, maybe even 10 at the absolute most, can this team compete with some of the stalwarts in the Western Conference? And I'm still just not sold on a depth perspective.
Yeah, they probably don't have as much depth as they need. But, boy, their starters and their first couple of guys off the bench, they're pretty good. So I'd say the first 7 guys are pretty solid. Even Joe Ingles can come in and have a really super game. Of course, the fact that they re-signed Rudy Gobert, which is important. He got the max there, and that's actually he got a little bit less than the max.
Yeah, discount. Yeah, he gave him a discount, about $35 million. I believe he could have gotten $240, signs for $205, so we did give him a tad bit of a discount. Yeah,
just a little discount, and the thing is, it makes everybody around him feel good. It makes the management feel good about him. Everybody loves Rudy, and of course he's having a stellar season at 14 rebounds a game. That's pretty awesome. So he's going to continue to improve. And of course, you've got this super duper guy, Donovan Mitchell, and he's going to improve for the next several years. So yeah, they've got a team that could beat other really good teams, as long as they don't get into major foul trouble, and as long as they do not have a guy go down in injury.
Tom, as far as the weekend is concerned, is there a specific game, a specific aspect of the league that you're going to be paying attention to? Because we talked about the quality, and we talked about some of the blowouts, and it's hit or miss on if you're going to get a great basketball game or not. What are you watching this weekend?
Well, it's always a good thing to watch Phoenix Suns, because they got a new construction of a team, and they're playing pretty well too. So watching the Phoenix Suns, watching the Clippers, and of course continue to watch the Brooklyn Nets and Milwaukee. Those are the teams that I'm kind of interested in right now. Milwaukee is still not. They're still not convincing me that they're the best. Now a lot of people are saying, "Gee, was Giannis really the MVP 2 years in a row?" Maybe not, but the thing about it is, Phoenix, L.A., and Brooklyn and Milwaukee are the teams to watch in the next several days, all the way to January 6th, which is next Wednesday. So those are the teams I'm looking to watch. Clippers, of course, they play well when all hands are on deck, and Paul George does not feel any pressure. When he doesn't feel any pressure, he comes through. But Phoenix is very interesting from the standpoint of, they've got Chris Paul now, who's a real legitimate Hall of Fame leader, and that's the important thing. He's such a leader, and he can make that thing go. And of course, Devin Booker can score lights out. They got DeAndre Ayton, was their number one draft choice a couple of years ago, and he's playing real well. He's playing like a 7-footer. Jay Crowder is also developing in a real good compliment off the bench. So, yeah, that's a team to watch and see if they can make some noise. Look, a lot of times these teams that have young players, as the season goes along, they either develop nicely or they drop off. They hit that rookie wall, or there's an injury or this or that, or there's some kind of team chemistry problem, and suddenly they're not the same team as they were in the beginning. But right now, the Phoenix Suns are on the up. They're coming on the way up, and that's really good to see.
Tom Perkins, again, of HoopCityNews.com. Tom, it's always a pleasure to get you on the show. Before I let you go, of course, let the listeners know about HoopCityNews.com.
Well, we write articles every week, and I talked about the free agency. I talked about the NBA draft. Talked about those players that have to redeem themselves for having a poor season last season, and who won the free agency, and which of course is the Lakers. But so yeah, keep reading those things, and I've condensed my articles. Instead of having to read War and Peace, which takes about, 2 weeks to read, I'm making these things 2 to 3 minute reads. So everybody out there, you're not going to be bogged down with having to read a long, long piece. Every now and then I'll throw a long, long piece in there for those purists. But for the most part, I keep it very condensed and right to the point.
Tom, always a pleasure. I appreciate the time once again. I know we'll do it again soon. Have a terrific New Year's, and we'll talk in the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Love being here.
We're out of time with this edition of Drive Time Sports. I want to thank Tom Perkins, Coach Kurt Christiansen. I'm out of here for the day. Tomorrow, the best of Drive Time Sports, so I will catch you on Monday. Have a very safe New Year's Eve, and we'll talk to you then. Be safe. I am out. Then be safe. I am out. Then be safe. I am